The station of the stars. RTI.
This is RTI, Radio Tatras International, your station of the stars, from Poprad to Portsmouth. It's 1300 in the UK, unless you're listening to the repeat, in which case it's about 2 in the morning. And 12 noon in the UK. We are by royal appointment today, so we're all on our best behaviours. We'll go to Rachel last because she's talking to Prince Michael already. Oh, gosh. Hello to Denise, to Robert, to Brian, Gavin, Karen, Keith, Anthony, Eva, Tracy, Chris, Larry, Nigel, Peter, hello Peter, Steve's there, good afternoon Steve, Luciana's there, and Dave's there as well, good old Dave. In the studio we've got none other than him. Hello.
Hello.
I've got your mic right this week.
That's very kind of you, thank you.
That's a miracle, isn't it?
Well.
You might have to move a little bit closer over here because they might not hear you on this one, you see.
Right.
You might be mild. That's all right for now, so Lee's in the studio, as is Zana.
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Nice to meet you again.
Oh,
Pleasure to be here.
She's been everywhere. Jan Tripoli, you should have a listen. In part 2 of the programme, we'll be talking about a book called
The Great Return.
That was nearly good. The Great Return, which is all about Slovaks returning to Slovakia from other parts of the world. But
And may I say,
yes,
it is actually being featured in the Consumer Watch Foundation.
1 minute 36
1 minute
seconds.
30 seconds, yes.
Yes, absolutely. And on the other line, we've got Rachel.
Hello.
Hello, Rach.
Hello.
Can you hear him?
Hear you?
I can hear you.
You can hear him?
I can hear Uncle Lee. I just didn't recognise him because I haven't spoken to him in such a long time.
No, 2
Gosh.
weeks with no Lee. That's dreadful.
Gosh.
It's
Oh,
just
Steve wants to
horrible.
get the lady closer to the camera, so we've got something better to look at. Well, thank you very much, Steve.
Is that Steve with the nice friends?
Yes. Anyway, with no further ado, so we've got a busy man on the other side of this as well. We would welcome to Postcard from Poprad and Radio Tatras International, a man I've been dying to get on the radio for a very, very long time, Prince Michael of Sealand. Good afternoon, Michael.
Good afternoon, Eric. Pleased to talk to you.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, great.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, I want to start right at the beginning, because believe it or not, there are 1 or 2 people on planet Earth that don't know what Sealand is, don't know how it gets started. So could you give me, not a potted history, a really good history of Sealand, please?
Well, back in the 1960s, my father got involved with a phenomenon called pirate radio, where people were broadcasting had transmitters broadcasting from ships, and then some took over the old wartime fortresses to broadcast into the UK. Being outside territorial limits, it was a legal thing to do, and they were very successful, and the kids loved it, and they got lots of advertising and started to make a bit of money, and then the government brought in a thing called the Marine Offences Act and made it illegal for people like yourself or skippers of tenders to supply the boats and the forts with fuel or staff or anything, or even advertising was illegal. So my father looked about for a more interesting jurisdiction and came across a fortress right out in the North Sea called the Rough Towers, and we took it over Christmas Eve 1966. But he took all his transmitters and his DJs there, but instead of broadcasting them, they had the bizarre idea of declaring independence, and that was 50-something years ago, and we're still there.
Lovely. And did you ever broadcast from Sealand?
No, only communications equipment. We never broadcast a radio station from there.
And okay, so you've got to 1967 where everybody said it was illegal, and you've got this structure which is now declared as a principality. What happened to it from there on in?
All sorts of different things happened over the years. We obviously considered broadcasting, and I think my father thought it might be a bit too controversial. And as I say, he declared independence on, well, I think it's, is it day after tomorrow, 2nd of September, 1967?
That's right.
Yeah. My mother's birthday, he made her a princess, which was a very romantic gesture, and it made him very happy, and it made her happy. And all sorts of things have happened over the years, with different business arrangements with different people. We've had an internet server farm out there called Haven Co. We had a little war in 1978 with some Germans and Dutch individuals. All sorts of things happened over the years. It's been quite an interesting life.
Wow. It sounds... Do you know, it sounds so surreal. I know it's not, because I know the history myself, and I want to share it with everybody else via you. But it almost sounds a fictional story, doesn't it?
Well, it's the mouse that roared. Passport to Pimlico. I don't know where he got the idea from, but I know I was away at boarding school. I was 14 years old, away at boarding school in North Wales, and quite an austere sort of environment. You know, I mean, as you can imagine, in those days, there wasn't any heating in the dormitories, and the old slate staircases, and what was it was like a schloss, like a castle out of a Count Dracula film where we were living at boarding. And I came back, and my father was having trouble. Obviously, money was a problem because of the Marine Offences Act, and he wasn't earning any money, and he had trouble staffing the place. And I was out there on the boat one day, and I said, I'll stay here. And he hummed and hawed. He said, no, I've got to go back to school. And I thought, well, this will be interesting for 6 months. I didn't realise it would be nearly 60 years. I didn't think it was that long a project. I thought it was a bit of adventure for now, but no, it's still there.
But the thing is, as you quite rightly said, schools back then were very austere anyway. But you had to learn, surely, how to make, do and mend, because you couldn't just pop down to the normal supermarket, buy a bunch of sandwiches or get a load of stuff to fix a light bulb or whatever. You had to learn a whole load of different skills.
The whole thing was really educational. I mean, I have to say, if you start with boarding school is quite educational in life as opposed to academically, and that's they teach you silly things, how to cook and make your own bed, which I think most schools don't. Maybe they do these days, but and they teach you how to live with anybody, whether you could sit down. I could sit down and have dinner with the Queen of England or a dustman and a tramp or whatever, and feel perfectly comfortable and be perfectly comfortable. Hopefully, make them comfortable. So I already had a little bit of a different background, I suppose. But yeah, anything you needed, whether it be a needle and thread to sew something up, or food or water. You had to import. For years, even with the radio station, we used to take water out there. We would carry, and it sounds really simple, water, but if you've got to carry water up some steps over a sea wall and down a concrete hard as about 200 foot long and load it onto a boat, you have to realise how bloody heavy water is. And then one day we realised it was really raining heavily, and we realised so much water was just pouring all over the place. So we set up, so we captured our own water, and we never looked back after that. Certainly until the numbers get up to 40 people or something, we catch enough water. Huge amount just off a helipad. Silly things, but I had to learn everything.
You've actually, you just highlighted something rather important, which I hadn't thought of. You just said if the numbers get up to 40, is it possible for people to go out there, as like going to a hotel or something?
No, not at the moment. We haven't done that for a long while. But we have had as many as 50 people out there, and we've had weddings out there and different things over the years, but not these days.
Yeah, I'm getting. Sorry,
going back.
Go on, you carry on.
Going back to the water thing, I remember on the radio station on the Knock John Ports, the DJs flushing the toilet with fresh water, when they could have just thrown a bucket over the side and pulled it up on the road. And my father was going berserk because it was just a huge issue. Water and fuel were the biggest problem.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm getting questions coming in for you already. Is Sealand recognised by any other country?
Well, there was a court case in 1968, I think, in the UK, where it was found to be outside British jurisdiction. So that was a step forward. And then in 1978, we had a minor war with it was a big war for us, with some Germans and Dutch, and Sealand was taken over for a couple of days, and I was held prisoner out there for 4 days, I think, 4 days and 4 nights, and we came back in a helicopter, slid down ropes, and recaptured it. And one of the nationals we kept was a German national who was a Sealand citizen. He had Sealand passport, and as far as we were concerned, he committed treason. So we released some of the others, and we kept it. And the German government demanded his release, and they phoned our lawyer up and said bond demands release if they're going up puts. And then they got onto the British government. The British government said there was nothing they could or would do because it was nothing to do with them. So then the German ambassador came and visited in the helicopters. That's de facto recognition. So and we stamped his past him, and he was a deputy.
So really, by default, the UK government said it's nothing to do with me, it's to do with Sealand. Then the German guy comes out to see you. So by default, you have been recognised by more than one country.
Yeah. I mean, you have what's called de jure recognition, which is, like lots of interesting letters written from the government, but de facto recognition is it's a fact, and it happens. So, yeah, job done.
Well done, that man. This is a very silly question, Michael, and I apologise in advance. It must have been more convenient if you liked fishing out there, says somebody.
Well, sometimes it stove off the hunger pangs. I mean, when we run low on water food in the past out there, we've literally had to fish to eat. But there was a lot of fishing to be done out there years ago. Not so much these days. The North Sea is not so plentiful with fish.
No.
But we had times we literally relied upon catching fish, and even had to distill our own water when it didn't rain for a while, and things got bad and the boat didn't turn up. And don't forget, in those days there was no communication, so we couldn't pick up a mobile phone and go, hey Dad, where are you? When are you coming out? The boat would go, and they'd say, I'll see you in 3 weeks, and then you'd be looking at the horizon, knowing which way you'd be coming from, and it didn't turn up for another month. And it was a very frustrating existence.
I should imagine not only just frustrated, it must have been quite frightening at times as well.
Well, we learned to live with all that kind of stuff. I think, and to this day, because we had an awful lot of trouble with people trying to attack us and take us over the first few years. And to this day, if it's a screaming hurricane blowing outside, that's when I feel the most comfortable and sleep the best. So a lot of people thought, my God, it might fall down or something. I've always slept the best because I know no one can get near it.
Yeah. Well, I bringing it slightly up to date now, I've noticed that on various occasions, especially through this last summer, there's been a lot of activity out on Sealand, doing restoration work, putting things back together again. So what is Sealand doing now?
Well, we have our own online. I mean, I've written my book called Holding the Fort, which is available on the website sealandgov.org.
Hang on. Sorry, I apologise, Prince Michael. I'm bowing my head as I say this for interrupting you. Can you do that a little bit slower so people can make a note of it, please?
Yeah, the website is sealandgov.org, and we have an online shop there which funds our whole project really. And as I say, my book's available there, which is sort of an autobiography history of Sealand. If you look on the internet, you'll find there's all sorts of convoluted stories, and I never bother to write them and to comment on them. I just let people get on with it. Yeah. But if you want to know the actual facts, and it's quite an amusing story, quite a lot of it, and interesting, read my book, Holding the Fort.
Okay, well, I've just been, actually the people on Facebook can see I'm pointing. It's the downside of being on Facebook. I've just been pointing to my colleague Lee Banks, who's the editor of the website called Consumer Watch Foundation, as read by the BBC, and various other people.
And the UN.
And the UN as well, yeah.
Yeah, Michael, send us your book. We'll review it for you. It's a really interesting story. I've been looking into it this week, and it'd be lovely to retell your story based around your book. Send us a copy.
Yeah, with pleasure, yeah. Tell me where to send it, and we'll do that, yeah.
We'll do that do that later this afternoon, Michael, I think, more than now. But, okay, what do you foresee as the future of Sealand?
I don't. I'm not sure. I think what would be really nice, and we've said it for a long time now, is to raise some land and have and involve more people. Every day, literally every day, and I tell no lie, we must 20, 30, sometimes 50 people asking to emigrate there, live there, get involved. We get loads and loads of email. We also, by the way, fund our project with the online shop. We market Lord and Lady titles and Duke and Duchess titles and things like that, and various paraphernalia. And it's been a great support to us. Right back in the very beginning, it was a dreadful financial drain on my family and very, very hard work. But these days, we have a huge amount of support. So it would be nice to raise a bit of land and have some, have other people out there that want to get involved.
Well, actually, that's a good point you just raised, because it is possible for you to contribute by effectively getting one of those certificates like you get for stars and things, to actually own a piece of Sealand now as well, isn't it?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things. You can even buy a Sealand mug if you want.
I might well buy one of those, mate. So, how much time do you spend on Sealand now?
I don't spend much time at all on Sealand now. I had my 66th birthday the other day, and while I'm really fit and well and everything else, I've got a few aches and pains these days, and the fast boats and things like that are not too helpful. But I do visit now and again, mainly when journalists are out there or there's some filming or something. We've got a few things, different TV programs when I go out there. It's an ongoing kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. Listen, 66, you're a youngster. I'm 65 next year. Stop it. You've got to be young and carry on, Michael, because we need people like you to carry on telling these stories.
Well, I'm getting married again next year. How about that?
Are you getting married to your young lady that's on Facebook with you?
Yeah, in April, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Michael, I've just found out via Facebook that one of the listeners today is a lady of Sealand, appointed.
Right.
One of your ladies is actually listening to the programme at the moment. Gosh.
That's good. Glad to hear it. By the way, a compliment on your selection of music, but of course that will be my age, I suppose. But it's quite unusual hearing the sort of selection I had your station on this morning.
So, yeah, we tend to at the weekends be that which I would describe as grown-up radio. It is typically presented by grown-up people who don't insult our intelligence by going, "I'll start talking now" when the track hasn't finished, or they do the opposite, which is, "Hello, you old person, I'm about to tell you that was released in 1964, just to make you feel old even more," because our people don't tend to do that. But they do come from all over the world, and they are a bit like your father, slightly rebellious. So I think there's probably something in keeping there, Michael.
Well, that's good. And funny enough, in the newspaper, was it yesterday or the day before, there was something about... Remember that song, "They're Coming to Take Me Away"? Ha ha, hee hee, ho ho.
Yes.
The Happy Farm.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And there was something in the newspaper the other day about how, and I didn't realise at the time, it had been banned by the BBC and several other stations because it was about mental health, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I remember as a young boy going out to the radio station. It's in my book, this story, by the way, so if you've already heard it. But I remember going out to my dad's radio station on the Nocturne Thoughts, Radio Essex he had, and we had a program called the Big Band Program at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I think, and presented by a fellow called Dave Sinclair, and it was a very, very serious program. All Glenn Miller, no one was. It was a very BBC type program, and Sinclair, this was in the morning. He said, "Would you like me to play you a record for when you get home?" So I said, "Yeah, I'd like." They're coming to take me away, but I didn't realise what programme was being presented at that time. I get home, and I remember being in the bath at home, and my dad roaring outside the door, "What the hell are they doing?" Here's for the station owner's son, and they went off. They're coming to take me away.
Yes, well, you've just answered one question for a listener. What station did your father run? Of course, that was Radio Essex, wasn't it?
Radio Essex, yes. It was the first 24-hour-a-day radio station in Europe. It was very underpowered. It didn't have an awful lot of power, and I can't remember what he had. But it didn't reach too far. But it was 24 hours a day. He did have a bit of a go. He'd seen radio in America. I mean, a lot of your listeners might not remember, but when I was a boy, the only pop music on radio was, I think, on Sunday, wasn't it, for an hour at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock?
No, we used to. I was the same as you, Michael. We used to get a little bit via Saturday Club on the BBC Late programme, and then we used to get Pick of the Pops on the Sunday, and that was it. And as I frequently say, the light programme was so light of real musical entertainment, it should have floated away. It was awful.
And we were all making crystal sets and things like that, weren't we, trying to listen to it?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Near enough.
Well, I hate to tell off a Prince, but I am going to, because you've been told off slightly. What's the web address again, please, sir?
The web address? sealandgov.org.
So is it Sealand Gov, all one word, Michael?
Yeah.
So Sealand...
All one word, sealandgov.org.
Sealandgov.org, because there's people about to go whizzing over there to have a look at stuff. Another question, were you there before Radio Caroline? I know the answer, but you can say it.
No, Radio Caroline, but then when we turned up, Christmas Eve 1966, and there was two fellas on there. There was a lot of skullduggery went on the days of pirate radio. It wasn't out of the ordinary. People being dispossessed and thrown off forts all around the Thames and the North Sea over those years. And there was even quite a few gangsters involved, and I believe the Crays were involved, and the Richardsons at one point. But no, we turned up Christmas Eve 1966 with two Radio Caroline guys on there. I could picture it like it was yesterday. It was 9 o'clock at night. It was dark. It was flat. And one guy, we got a guy to climb up a piece of rope that was hanging down over the side. He climbed up and he threw a rope ladder down. One of our guys threw a rope ladder down. And then I looked up and I could see two men standing there. One had an air rifle in his hand. And our guy came up behind him, and the others went up there, and we just took it out of his hand and told them to pack their bags. And when they got back to Harwich, they told their boss that all these people, heavies had turned up with pickaxe handles and shotguns, which is not entirely untrue. 13, 14, 13, you know?
Yeah, it's amazing how history gets repeated.
And as I always say, a few skinny, spotty DJs, you know?
Yeah, I can imagine. Right, Michael, we're going to ask you for the title of your book because we've got to move on in a couple of seconds. I just so thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you so much. What's the title of your book again, Michael?
My pleasure, yeah. My book's called Holding the Fort by Michael of Sealand, and it's available on Kindle, Amazon, or from our website.
And of course, it will be linked from...
The Consumer Watch Foundation.
Yes.
Yeah, seriously, it'd be very interesting to do, Michael, and we'd enjoy it. We're doing a couple of book reviews in the same sort of vein about people that you will actually know, and it would be nice to make it a triumvirate with yours.
You're a bit muffled.
Yeah.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, what a good idea.
Oh, right. That's because I'm on the wrong microphone.
Yes. Go again.
Yeah, what I was saying, Michael, sorry about that. We'd love to look at your book and review it, talk about it on the Consumer Watch Foundation. And it's quite opposite to do it at the moment because we're doing a couple of other books about people who you probably will know, I'm sure you do, and it would be nice to make it a triumvirate of them.
Yes. Of course, yes. Yeah, it'll be my pleasure, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Right, Michael, thank you. A million thanks for taking your time. Good luck with getting married again next year. I think you're a star. Or as my boss tells me for getting married more than too many times, he calls me an Irish kamikaze pilot. I don't know why he does that, but he does.
Michael, this is Rachel, who you didn't speak to before, which I don't know what Uncle Eric did to us, but we didn't get to speak. But I've got to tell you, there's an emergency at your gift shop. You're out of coffee mugs. Flat sold out.
I like that. That's very good. Blimey. There you go, Michael. Get some more mugs in, mate. Well, you've got... Hang on, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So we've got 4 mugs already. No, sorry, that's different, isn't it? Listen, Michael, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure. I have great admiration for your father and mother. They're wonderful people. And I'm so really proud of you for keeping that little dream that they had active and alive.
Well, I've got my 2 grown-up sons who have stepped in the breach, James and Liam, and they're keeping it going. So it'll be going long after me, I'm sure.
That's a really good thing. That's a fantastic thing. Michael, lots of love to you. Thank you so much. Have a smashing weekend. And just again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Eric.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye now. That's Prince Michael. He's about to disappear off into the sunset or somewhere. We're going to take a break quickly, and when we come back from the break, I will get more organised. Probably not. But there you go. That's just the way it goes, isn't it? This is Radio Tatras International.
From the heart of Europe to the world, this is RTI.
This is an appeal that I simply wish I didn't have to make. In this day and age, how is it possible that 1,400 children will die today from dirty water? That children like Elodie have to drink dirty water from rivers and swamps, risking their lives. Right now, you can help save a child's life. Text the word water to 70080 to give WaterAid £3. WaterAid has the expertise to install pipes, pumps and taps that will bring clean water to children at risk. They just need your support. In the next minute, dirty water will kill another child like Elodie. So please, don't wait to save a child's life. Text water to 70080 now to give WaterAid £3. Thank you.
If your dream holiday is 2 hours from the UK, perfect for children and teenagers, young couples and the older visitor, ideal for the physically active and for those who just want to unwind, Aqua City is the destination for you. Described by the Travel Channel as the place that will soon be on everybody's lips, be ahead of the crowd and the envy of your friends, but still enjoy a home from home. Come to Aqua City Poprad, the world's leading green resort.
From the heart of Europe to the world, RTI.
Welcome back to Postcard from Poprad on a fantastic day with Prince Michael. And that web address again is sealandgov.org. Sealandgov, all one word, .org. I think he's still talking to Rachel at the minute. We can't talk. They're talking, they're just gossiping on their own. They are.
He's a very interesting man.
I know
he's likes talking to him more than you.
Well, that's probably true. But Rachel's unavailable at the minute.
Oh no, Rachel!
Come back. Somebody go onto Facebook and tell Rachel to put her phone down. We can't talk to her unless we get that.
Can I ask you a technical question?
Yes.
Is this microphone working or not?
Yes.
You honestly.
What?
I'm just not friends with
this
you.
one is Skype. Oops.
Oh, I
There's
get
Rach.
it. I understand. She is.
Yeah, there's Rach. That's Rach. We got Rach back now.
Hello, Rach.
Hello, Rach.
I had a side call from Prince Michael. I had to take it. It's royalty.
You were just hobnobbing with royalty and ignoring us, weren't you?
I didn't even know. You know how I don't know how to work my phone. It just we sort of just patched into each other, and you guys got put on hold. I didn't know what was happening, and then I felt very important.
Did you talk to him then?
Yeah.
Ooh, get her. Private interview. Get her. Get her. Get her. Get her.
He was actually trying to get all our secrets, but I wouldn't tell.
Oh, right. I've got to say hi to Mike, to Gary, and Sophia. No, it's Sophia.
Who's Sophia?
I think it should be more apt if I went, Dobry den, Sophia.
Dobry den, Sophia.
Oh, God, he sounds Russian.
I don't sound Russian.
Doesn't he sound Russian?
No, that's my Slovak voice, isn't it? Dobry den, Sophia.
He sounds Russian.
Doesn't sound like he's Russian to me. He sounds like he's taking it easy.
What?
That's terrible. That's as bad as my Hobnobs joke.
This is getting... Today it's getting really silly, you know.
Well, it'll be getting serious again because we have our friend.
I know, but we're having cheap English humour everywhere.
We've got cheap Australian humour, which nobody gets.
Do we have a list today?
We've got 3 listeners today.
No, we don't have a list.
Oh, that's good. Thanks for telling me.
Okay.
I know I sweated blood on it last night, Rachel.
Yeah, right. So now the normal show is back. Can I ask Lee how his dental appointment went?
It was my dental appointment.
Hold on,
lasted-
there's a supplementary question. Did they use alcohol or a sedative?
It was a mixture of both, actually, Steve, and it was very pleasant. I was actually banned from the studio one day not because of the alcohol, because of the sedatives that had been used.
This is true.
Yes. No, the dental work.
It's true.
Excuse me.
I'm just saying I'm agreeing with you.
Thank you very much.
Well, there you are then.
Right.
Go on, Colette, go.
No, because he's waiting. 5 months of dental work culminated last week.
They're coming to take me away. They're coming to
No, we
take me
didn't
away.
that was my jingle, did we?
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you for your interest. It was hell, but I think it was worth the trouble. I came over here to have 1 crown refitted. And mainly because of the language difficulty between me and the dentist, I ended up with 11 crowns.
No, you had teeth that were about to fall out, so he fixed them.
No, there was nothing wrong with my teeth. It was just the fact that the 1 crown he was going to put in would actually have eclipsed the others. So I had the rest done. 11 crowns.
I know.
Marvellous.
And the difference is, I have to say, and I must say this quite seriously, that I did actually become a dental tourist, and the work that I had done here cost me less than £3,000, which is whatever that is in euros, about 3,000 euros at the minute. And in Britain, the same work, because you can't get it on the NHS, would have cost me over 15,000 euros.
Blimey.
Wow.
That's a lot of difference.
That is, isn't it? It certainly is. Anyway, hello to Noreen and to David. And now we move on, because I'm going to let Rachel do this, and I'll tell you for why. Lee and I, so you're going to have to swap seats.
Oh, dear.
I'm just trying to get him some exercise. It never works, though. He doesn't do any exercise.
I do more than you.
No, that one.
Is this working then?
That's working. You read like that.
You have to have that there.
Yeah. And I'm going to let Rachel talk. And let me just explain for a second why. Lee and I have been so connected to this book. It's one of those situations where I also had difficulty with Michael, because I know the story of sealandgov.org inside out and probably backwards, because I admired his father so much. So, because Rachel's got less knowledge of this, we might get a better interview. So I'm going to shut up. Yeah. Lee's going to shut up.
A bit.
And I can turn your fader off.
Yes.
I can fade you down. I'm the only person on this planet that can make Lee smaller than he is now.
And not fade away. Not fade away.
Strolling bones, that's about it for you. So I'm going to let Rachel talk to Susanna about this new book. And it's called The Great Return. Rachel, over to you.
This is a little bit embarrassing for Uncle Eric and Uncle Lee, because as I've had absolutely no communicate with them for a week, I have no idea who Susanna is or what I'm supposed to do. So it might be good if you give me a little bit of information so that I can then lead said interview. At the moment, I could be talking to anybody about anything.
Hi, Rachel. This is Zana talking.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. We actually, I think several months ago, we had an opportunity to talk live on radio when I was here talking about our first book, which was co-authored with Gabriela Beragaziova.
The Tree.
Yes, the Tree book, Slovakia Legend of the Linden.
Now I know who you are. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Apology to Lee and Derek.
Yes, thank you.
No. Absolutely no apology to Lee.
Fade her out. Fade her out.
You know how many women called Susanna you've introduced me to over the last 6 years? This could have been any number of those Susannas for any number of reasons. But
It's
I will say,
testing your interviewing skills,
thank
dear.
you to Susanna for clearing up that mess, which you two couldn't clear up.
Hi, Rachel.
Even though you're in communication with me all the time. No information. I'll leave it to the women to clean this mess up. Thank you very much.
It's okay. We're going to rise to the occasion, Rachel. I think we're going to do a great interview.
We are. So you've written another book.
Yes. So this year has been a very fruitful year for me. This is the second book that has come out under our organization, our non-for-profit called Global Slovakia. We, of course, work in partnership with a publisher and distributor. So we do have the book circulating not just in Slovakia, but also the Czech Republic, as well as being up on Amazon and eBay. But that's kind of the boring facts. This book is very different from the first one. It's actually, if the first one is the story of Slovakia, the history of Slovakia, from antiquity to present, let's say, this new book, The Great Return, is Slovakia in the 21st century. So, yeah, it's a very different take. It's also a very visual book. It's about 300 pages. It's very heavy. It weighs almost 2 kilos. It's a coffee table book that has 58 portraits in it and interviews with those unique individuals, as well as my 7-year research into migration. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's actually has some really interesting content, very well researched content, and of course, it's exciting, and because it portrays the country through the faces and stories of her people.
You know, last time we spoke, I detected an accent, and we were starting to talk about that. And then Lee and Eric interrupted me, as they always do, and I never got the end of that story. So I'm wondering if I might hear that story now.
Sure. So that's correct. You are hearing, I guess, what you could call a Canadian or an American accent. I'm a Slovak, an international Slovak, but I had the privilege to kind of live all over the world, and I'm also a Canadian citizen. So the quick version of a very, very long story is that I was born in Slovakia, but my parents always, I guess, wanted to leave and wanted me to experience a better world. At the time, Slovakia was behind the Iron Curtain. It was actually communist Czechoslovakia, and they fled the regime through neighboring Austria, which was the Free West. And upon spending close to a year in Austria and the various kind of refugee camps, we arrived as landed immigrants in Canada, where I was raised. I grew up on the West Coast, so shout out to Vancouver. And from there, I went to study in the United States. And basically, when I was 22 years old, I decided I really wanted to experience the world. So since then, I've lived altogether in 9 different countries, 4 different continents. And now, as I would say, an adult that's ready to give back to society.
Adult?
A young woman that's ready to give back to society after having acquired a lot of personal experience and a lot of international experience as well as education. I've decided to come back to Slovakia. I set up my NGO called Global Slovakia, which you can see at globalslovakia.com. And in partnership with various people, most prominently my sidekick, Gabriela Beregaziova, Dr. Gabriela, actually, we've released 2 books, and this is the second one, and we're just really excited to interact with people and for people to read them, to be touched by them, to be inspired by them, to be challenged by them. So we're really looking forward to engaging with the public.
I also recall me asking you when your book's coming out about you.
Yeah, that's still in the making. I feel I still have some more life experience to go through before I share that story. But I definitely do have an aspiration to communicate that. I have lived a very interesting life, but I still feel I have at least another decade of interesting experience to acquire before.
Can I just interrupt? And I'm being serious.
No.
Just for once in my life, I'm being serious. If you're on Facebook at the moment, Steve has just put a link to Susanna's books from amazon.co.uk. So thank you, Steve, for putting the links there. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. It's very kind of you.
While Eric's interrupting, Rachel, may I interrupt for a second as well?
Yes.
Susanna, tell us why people are coming back to Slovakia. Why are people returning?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is, there's numerous factors, but I would say first and foremost, there's an emotional pull to come back to the motherland. These people that are featured in this book, or many of the returnees that are coming back to Slovakia, were born in this country. They grew up speaking Slovak. They grew up eating Slovak food. They grew up with their inner circle, their family, their community, and obviously a wider society around them. And then when they were about 20 years old, or in their early 20s, they went abroad to experience a different world, whether it was studying in the UK or working in Germany or traveling the world per se. And at some point, they realized that they started to feel those emotional pulls, those emotional strong bonds that are formed in childhood to the land that you're born into. Now, this is not the case for everyone, but I would say for the majority. And these bonds, let's say, have there's been an impulse. If it's a vein, there's been an impulse that has been traveling through and has been calling them back. The first reason why I think people come back is emotional. Secondly, it's patriotism and opportunity. So Slovakia is a country that didn't exist on the map of Europe before 25 years ago. We're one of the youngest countries on the continent, and there's much work to do in this country. We spent the last quarter of a century kind of building up our state institutions, strengthening, let's say, the foundations of our economy. We've made the country lucrative for foreign investment. We have we're one of the largest recipients of foreign investment funds in Central Europe.
But also,
yes,
the least amount of debt per capita of anywhere in Europe.
Yeah, that's really remarkable.
Yeah.
So basically, if we look at it in terms of a house, the foundation of the structure of the house has been made, but now it's time to come in and to basically make that house livable. And so people see those opportunities to, let's say, bring their skills back, bring their knowledge back, bring their network back, people they've met abroad, and somehow try to bridge build between Slovakia and the world, where that's bridge building through initiatives, through art exchanges, through businesses, etc. So patriotism and opportunity actually are very closely hand in hand, or work very closely hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Well, in fact, there were some figures came out today, and I think I'm right in saying it's 8 billion euros. That's I'm sure it's cars only. Yeah, I think it's cars. Something like 200,000 cars or something like that go between Slovakia and the UK every year. That's a huge bridge. And I'm trying to do this from memory, apologies. I think the UK is now the 5th biggest trading partner of Slovakia, which is an amazing thing, really, when you think about it.
Yes. And actually, if we want to talk about the car industry, Slovakia's car industry is one of the largest, or the largest in the world per capita. Slovakia is the largest exporter of cars per capita. And most recently, we've had a major investment of 1 billion through Jaguar Land Rover. Yeah. They've very generously come into our country, and of course, given the local people a lot of jobs. But there's a million other opportunities outside these kind of hardcore industries that exist in this country, because we are a landlocked country of 5.5 million, so we can't just stay isolated within our own little Slovak reality.
But we have got a seaside. We've got a seaside beach.
That's true.
We do have a seaside beach in Slovakia.
That's true.
Yeah.
Actually, in many ways, Slovaks really enjoy going to water. I mean, this country's scattered with lakes.
Lee's now very confused.
Because I know of one as well, but it might not be the same one.
No, it was actually built in communist days.
That's right.
Oh, I know the one, of course I do.
Yeah, it was built many years ago because, as Susanna says correctly, in communist days you were totally controlled. You couldn't go on holiday. And some people found out there was a seaside, and that caused Moscow a bit of a problem. So they spent millions, and they built a seaside coast, didn't they? Mm-hmm. With a proper seaside. And
Where is this?
It slipped my mind right now.
It's out towards the east.
Yes.
It's about 45 minutes from the Ukraine border. And the name's on the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember it.
I'm going to go there, and I'm going to report on it. Also, if you remember, when MTV came to Slovakia...
Oh, this is true, yes.
Yeah, Eric and I were at the MTV party. In fact, Eric was emceeing it. Yeah. And...
you see, just say that again. I was emceeing on MTV.
He said he was DJing. I said he was emceeing.
Emceeing on MTV. Thank you very much.
And... actually, because it was a beach party and there was no beach there, we actually had a beach imported in for the day, and it's still there. The remnants of it are still there.
Yeah, you're true. Absolutely true.
Yeah, Uncle Lee's injected some wonderful things into your economy. Hasn't he spent like €500,000 at your zombie bar?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Exactly.
See, and that is not the reason why you should come to... actually, Caroline is being the Slovak tourist board. The weather is awesome there, she says, because Steve asked, what's the climate like?
It's brilliant. It's a thunderstorm at this particular moment.
At this moment in time, yeah. But typically, to answer your question, Steve, because I think Susanna's selling it so well, unlike the UK, there are distinctly 4 seasons here. You have spring, summer, autumn and winter. So for those of us that lived in other countries and can remember that from decades back, you still got that sort of typical climate of your youth. So when you come out here, you know in the winter you're going to be cold, you know in the summer you're going to be hot. The only thing I would say to anybody that comes here in the summer is please be careful of the sun, because Poprad especially is several hundred metres above sea level, and equally when you go up the mountains it's 1,784 I think is the highest easy point without climbing. And at that level, you can burn, because of the UV, you can burn so quickly, especially in the summer. So please, please, please put sunscreen on, because otherwise you'll end up like a fried person.
And don't forget, in the winter, it's like a Christmas card.
It is.
It's absolutely glorious. We're going to spend...
It didn't snow when I was walking around.
You were here at Christmas, weren't you?
It was snow. There was snow where you were walking around, though.
But it was on top of the mountains,
At the top of the mountain.
Yeah, you had to walk up there, didn't you?
I didn't get to see snow falling from the sky.
It's glorious. It's absolutely glorious. We're really looking forward to it.
Do you know what's really funny? And I know we were going off on a tangent, but we was there.
Sure.
It was the same with Susanna yesterday. Because you don't typically live here, you're looking at the mountains going, oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow, all the time.
The mountains are truly spectacular. I mean, if you can get on Google and hit Google Images, they're just so high and so powerful. And it's not just the visual effect of them. There's also kind of an energetic shock wave that travels whenever I look at them, at least personally. So, yeah, I'm just constantly, like, gasping at the beauty and at the power of the Tatra mountains, especially the high Tatras.
Yeah.
Which are awe-striking.
Oh, Kat says he's running late, but he's here now. So that's all right. He's here. Hi to Pharaoh, to Russ, Graham, Bob, Rachel, and Scott. Hello, Scott. I think did we say hello to Caroline, or did I just mention?
No, you just mentioned her.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, Caroline.
And good luck with the new change of career and university.
Why? What's she doing?
She's going to go and get a new degree.
Oh, right. What in? Do we know?
It's to do with mental health care.
Oh, right. Excellent.
Nice. Excellent. That's very cool.
Actually, I just thought of something. And I shouldn't do this on the radio, should I? Caroline,
no.
Caroline, can you get in touch with Rachel via Facebook? Because I think you're friends. Because that might help you when you're doing your university work. There you go.
We've got lots and lots of case studies in this house, dear.
There you go. Right, now we're going to get back to the book.
I'm ready.
Sorry, Rach, I've got to ask one question. When you started the book, how did you go about approaching people to be in the book?
Yeah. So I kind of had a good reason to approach people. At first, it wasn't because of the book, but actually for my research. First of all, I had a great privilege and opportunity to do my PhD, my doctoral research for 4 years in the United Kingdom on a full scholarship, actually, by the British taxpayers. So thank you so much for that. So as part of the research, I had to interview over 100 different people to try. This is called qualitative research process, where you go out into the terrain and you try to understand a phenomenon. Let's, in this case, return migration and its impact on knowledge transfer by talking to people and by gathering stories. So I interviewed over 100 people. I think I have over 1,000 hours of recordings. And I just slowly started to diversify the people I was approaching, because at first I was focusing on the returnees themselves, which in general are quite young people, under the age of 30.
Like me?
Exactly,
Thank
exactly,
you.
just like you, that were coming back and were getting jobs in various sectors, whether it was working for the government or was setting up their own little non-for-profit or starting up something in hospitality, that is a restaurant, etc. And then I kind of wanted to understand the impact of this from different perspectives. So I first started targeting people in the government, and my ambition was to speak to some officials, but very quickly it escalated to some very high-profile people, including the former Deputy Prime Minister of this country, the current Minister of Foreign Affairs, now can't think of everyone in there, advisors, top-ranking advisors to ministers, etc. And they gave me a really unique perspective on the situation because they gave it to me from the perspective of the state.
Yep.
So in terms of what it means for Slovakia and human capital, and what it means also for Europe, if we really kind of zoom out and we look at the reality from a very macro perspective. So it's like you have human beings moving all over the continent, and which is quite natural if you think about it. There are no divides between countries. But nevertheless, this can have a very kind of negative implication on the country that's losing its most talented people. And that's kind of what's happening with the phenomenon of migration out of Slovakia. Slovakia has one of the largest student diasporas in the continent. That means 1/3 of our university students are studying at foreign universities. And the scary thing is we don't know if these people are going to come back. Now, if you think about it, the university students are actually the future kind of leaders of the country. They're the ones that are getting the specialized knowledge, and they're going to become the lawyers, the judges, the doctors, the mental health professionals, etc., as you were saying about your daughter. Now, Slovakia was losing these people, or is still losing these people. And so a lot of kind of the talk about this topic is about brain drain in the media and concern about just Slovakia losing all its brains and no one being left in the country to basically build it, to run its structures, its institutions. Mm-hmm. And I kind of, I was looking at, I always look at things a little bit differently. And in this case, I was saying, well, yes, true, they're leaving. But actually, there could be benefit in them leaving, and especially if these people come back. And that's where I kind of made a big theoretical contribution in terms of it saying it can be brain training, but then also brain gain. Now, we have to kind of contextualize the situation a bit because Slovakia was for 40 years behind the Iron Curtain. And because of that, there's a lot of knowledge gaps. Like, we were never allowed to have free enterprise. So that means all of a sudden in the 1990s we were able to do business, but we didn't have the know-how. We didn't have the networks. It's all about connections, especially if you want to sell outside the Slovak market, which is really small, 5 million. So naturally, if you come up with a product, you want to sell it to the world. Well, guess what? You need to learn how to sell things to the world. You need to know how to engage with distributors, etc. There's a lot of kind of processes and relationships that are behind any kind of successful business. Secondly, we had no experience with marketing because, again, for 40 years, not only was there no free enterprise, every single store sold the same products for the same price. So there was no competition of goods.
Well, the fun story I remember is a lady saying to me, I was discussing this when I first came here, and she said it was really weird. One day, we had one loaf of bread at one price. Mm. On the day that communism died, we had 2 loaves of bread with 2 different prices. The next day, there was 20, and they didn't know what to choose.
Yes.
And that was the issue. They didn't know what to choose. Yeah. They had no idea.
So don't forget, this is quite recent as well. This is 1989.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's diversity of choice didn't exist under communism, and diversity of opinion didn't exist.
And we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation.
Of course, a lot of things have changed in a quarter of a century in the last 25 years, or almost 30 years, actually. 2019 is going to mark 30 years since the collapse of the Iron Curtain.
Yep.
But obviously there's still time lags, and the education sector is actually one of the last to experience reforms. It's always underfunded, and particularly in Slovakia, the government is just struggling to pay teachers enough to survive or to attract teachers, actually. There's a shortage. So it has not that much attention has gone into kind of reforming the curriculum. So that means the country's producing human capital, that is, let's say, young people, which are lacking in certain critical skills. So what I argue through my work is that this can be kind of short-circuited, or let's say biohacked, by these young, talented people that naturally already have these ambitions to go abroad and experience the world, which is very natural.
I'm going to interrupt for a minute. I've got something very important. Steve just reminded me. By the way, the link I posted is an Amazon link.
Yes.
Right. And it's a link which donates money to Bradbury Fields, a Society for the Blind. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that nice?
Yes.
That's cool, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Steve. And Martin says, the high tatras are amazing. I have the privilege of waking up and looking at them from my bed every morning. What a lucky boy.
Lucky you.
And no, Steve, I didn't live here in communist days. One of these days, because Lee's nagging me as well, I will get down to writing my anti-communist bits. But I was heavily involved, more so with the Baltic states than the V4 countries where we are now. Although I do have, and Lee knows most of them, amazing stories of what used to go on here and how I used to influence people from London, which is quite funny. So I didn't live here then, no, but I was heavily involved in the Baltic states, this area of Europe as well, and about at least 10 former Iron Curtain countries I was communicating with on a weekly basis, much to the disgust of Russia. But do I care?
No. Let me just say very quickly as well. It is an interesting fact that the majority of people, particularly in Britain and elsewhere, think that the fall of communism in 1989 here really focused on the Berlin Wall and Pink Floyd, but it didn't.
No.
It didn't. It was really the change, the massive change happened here. And if you, again, I'm not mentioning this for any commercial reasons really, but if you go to the Consumer Watch Foundation, there's a very interesting article, or a couple of articles.
From Jan.
Well, there's Jan's article, and there's one about actually what happened and why it happened on there. Just nip down, have a look at it. And Jan Sestak, I did an interview with him, and he talks quite openly about the effects it had on him on a personal basis. Mm-hmm. He's the railway DJ who's written a book with Tony Prince.
Yeah.
And
it's a really good book.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
I'm going to read it.
Good.
And just have a look. Go there and have a look at these 2 or 3 stories.
Yeah.
It's just interesting.
Rach, we're going to go back to you to close up the interview.
Well, I asked this last time, and I keep repeating questions, but, why not?
Sure.
They're repeating. They're very important.
Yeah.
When are you going to sojourn to another continent and come and visit me here in Australia?
Oh, wow. That is like a wonderful kind of door opener to a country I've actually always wanted to visit. I've never yet had the chance. I've never actually gone that far to. It's a completely unknown continent for me.
It's a long way away.
It's a long way away, but I've always really got on with Australians, especially when I lived in London. So hopefully soon. There's no date yet, but if I do come, I'll definitely be promoting our books. But there's also a very interesting connection with Australia.
Really quick.
Yeah, sure. Do you know Frank Lowy?
Yes.
So he's obviously one of the 7th or top 10 richest man in the world. Very, very successful, an icon of prestige and success and business achievement. But he's actually of Slovak origin. So, and I talk about him in The Great Return. He's mentioned. So he was born in Slovakia, but essentially fled Czechoslovakia as a result of what was happening in Europe with the rise of Nazi Germany, and I think
right, very quickly, name of the book again?
Yeah, The Great Return. So if you want to learn more about Slovakia and discover the beautiful people, get this book. The website is www.thegreatreturn.eu. So that's for Europe. So
you don't need www, just put
thegreatreturn.eu.
Thank you. That's a simple way to do it. Steve says, if you had your memoirs published, Eric, there'd be a paper shortage. Is that a compliment or?
I've been talking quite thoroughly with him about ghostwriting his memoirs for him. Don't you worry about the paper shortage.
All right, Rachel, time to say goodbye, darling.
Goodbye, darling.
Bye, Rachel. It's so nice to talk to you always. I really enjoy your questions.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure.
And I'm just going to give Debbie Flint a head slap for being so blessed late. Debbie, you're an hour out. We're just finishing, and you missed it. Right, thanks so much. Love to Robbie. What are you up to? Oh, I know what Lee's doing.
No, you don't.
Yes, you're polishing your car tomorrow.
I'm not. I'm making radio programs.
He's polishing his car tomorrow.
I'm making radio programs.
He's polishing his car tomorrow. Because I insist. What have you missed? Prince Michael, Susanna, everything. You'll have to listen to the podcast. This is Radio Tatras International. Love to you all. Have a super week until next week. And up next, it's the one and only Steve. But before that, I have to say thank you to everybody with the comments. Thank you to Prince Michael, obviously, for joining us. And thanks to the two Herberts in the studio as well. From Poprad to Plymouth, this is the Station of the Stars, Radio Tatras International.